as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the Boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings. Watch the countdown timer.
Away we go again. Lost like I'm lost on purpose. If found, please return to. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home, my vision blurry, I'm paying the cost. I'm not enough. In fact, it's even better when you're not involved. When I miss your call, I feel that I evolve. Cause at your mention, I am more dependent than a college student on their parents or an old person on their pension. Not to mention, when you hit me on WhatsApp without attention and a bad booty bitch walks in, she looks tempting. Look, my Achilles heel is when I say what I feel, you say, baby, come home, and I don't think that I will, cause all this motherfucking stress is gonna get me killed. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the Boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings.
No, I can't play these games. No, you can't disrespect and call me names. Sending me signals like you about to switch lanes. Well, go on, do your thing. Go on, do your thing. I mix champagne and propane, get lit. I'm trying to forget all the things that you said, all the things that we did. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before. When I get home, watch the breakdown. And I get home when I get home. You just gonna act like we normal now. Good luck. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now.
Boom. And we are back. Flip let me come back, take my job hosting the show again, even though the internet wanted me to get Wally pipped. Flip, thank you for allowing me to come back. Once again, I am here. I'm your host. I am Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. We got Nick somewhere around tinkering, trying to figure out some technical things, but we will go ahead and get started. My man, wide receiver one, Myles. How you doing? How you been?
I want to think of like a black Wally Pitt. Like what can we do to substitute that? Like for real. I'll think of something because I know there's something.
Figure it out, man. Figure it out. And of course,
work on it, Myles.
And while you're working on it, we'll get the intro from the man. We got Flip in here. I understand why he was going to take my job. If this is the background he had last week, coming in here with the corporate background, the bookshelf, Minnesota in the background.
This is how you know Flip's not at home. This is how you know Flip's not at home.
No, man, it's my library, bro.
Flip is not this bougie.
This is the East Wing.
Flip in the East Wing, set himself up. No ring light for Flip. Flip just went and put it in where he can just sit and bask in the sunlight while we're all hiding from the outdoors.
California sun.
All All right, y'all. Well, let's jump in. Let's get to this thing. And Myles, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh, snap.
And
Yep,
say what's up
go
to
ahead.
Zay. What up, Zay?
Yeah,
How you doing?
He ain't saying hi to nobody right now. That kid is pissed.
And Myles, I feel like so far free agency has just been a bunch of making you sad. A lot of the dudes you were on here talking to us about a couple weeks back have been signed so far. So I guess Myles, talk to me. Not just about the players you're upset signed someplace else, but even though Flip will always tell us everyone who spends big in free agency are losers, who do you feel is doing well so far in free agency?
So don't
worry, we'll get to the Vikings, yo.
For sure. I won't say the Vikings right now. Even though there are a couple teams. So I think on one end, a team that's spending, but I think they're spending well. I would say the New York Jets. I think them getting Corey Davis and how did I drop? I'm dropping the ball already. Carl Lawson at the prices they got those two guys at. They're expensive, but they're guys who still have yet to hit their prime, and they didn't. In my opinion, I don't think they broke the bank for those two guys. Like I know the edge markets was trending toward like the $18+ million a year. They got Carl Lawson at 15, and they got Corey Davis for what? I think it was like 12.5. It was something really cheap.
Yeah,
it was like
12.5.
12.5. That's really cheap.
Guaranteed.
That's really cheap in my opinion for a wide receiver of his talent, I think. And so, and they have plenty of money to spend. So it's not like they're up against it. I think they're just trying to add talent to their roster. So for me, I think that those are a couple good moves that, yes, they were day one moves, but I think with a team that had a lot of cap space and they just need to add talent, I think those are two really good moves. Flip talked about this one earlier, and I agree. I think the Colts, the Indianapolis Colts, they're another team that have a lot of cap space, but they're not going out there and just overspending on players. They're waiting back, let the market kind of settle a little bit, and then they'll probably make a few moves to address some needs, but they won't overspend on anybody, and they'll probably get the better value for it. And so I'm always impressed with teams that can do that, and the Colts have always shown that under their current regime that they can be patient and they can find talent anywhere.
All right, so Flip, talk to me because off season comes around and we all get very excited about the prospect of making our team better.
He's going to
making our team better.
Sign 12 guys for $1 million each.
Don't make me talk about these random NFL teams I don't care about, man. Let's talk about the Vikings.
No, so Flip, as we're getting going here, I'm bringing you back to the Vikings. Every year we get very excited, and as Vikings fans, this year's no different. We're talking about clearing cap space, doing all sorts of things. Myles has his wish list of players that he falls in love with. You tell us to stop talking about Keelan Cole. What are your thoughts about free agency, generally speaking, and what are your thoughts on the moves the Vikings have made so far?
Generally speaking, I think it's been interesting to see the terms and the lengths of the contracts that have been signed. We knew there was going to be a big opening salvo. We knew the restricted cap situation wouldn't really touch the top tier of the market, but we thought that some of these guys might try for 1 or 2 year prove-it deals, but we're not really seeing that. We're seeing 3, 4, 5 year deals for these big time veterans, which is interesting. The Vikings, on the other hand, went for, some 1 and 2 year deals, but the big names are signing for 3, 4, 5 year deals. They're going to teams that are able to front load contracts, not backload them. And then I think most importantly, you start looking at some of these contract grades on Over the Cap, some of these free agency grades on The Athletic. Over the Cap has graded 33 of these contracts, and only 12 of them got a grade of B or better. So the general consensus is there's a lot of overpaying going on right now. Hopefully the Vikings can remain, a little bit patient. Hopefully those fans can be a little bit patient, and we can start seeing value in the next few weeks.
And here he is. As Myles said, the man having quite possibly the best free agency period to date. And also, I don't know, Nick's coming through with his bookshelf and his library to rival Flip's library. We might need to have a vote from the people to let us know whose library is really coming through, coming the strongest here.
We got the Henley versus the hoodie. This is for real. I feel attacked.
So Nick, talk to me about it. Free agency. You know, you've correctly predicted some of the moves that the Vikings were going to make here. Most notably, Rashod Hill. Is he going to be starting for us next year, or do you think this is a good value signing? Talk to me about what the Vikings have done so far, Nick.
Yeah, I think it's hard to see Rashod Hill being the plan A to start at left tackle this season. I know when they approached Riley Reiff last offseason, that was the plan, was to have Rashod Hill start at tackle. And they do think he's a competent tackle. He's not a good one, but for a backup, he's pretty darn good. So it wasn't exactly the plan A last season, and it wasn't the plan A this offseason. But I think having Rashod Hill around does give them some comfort in asking Reiff to take a pay cut, which this time around he rejected and hit the open market. And we'll see what happens there with Reiff's contract. I think so Hill is getting a four-year veteran benefit contract. It's kind of like a souped up veteran minimum contract. It counts for only $1 million under the cap, which, you know, considering the fact that he's taking somebody else's place on the salary cap, is like 0.3 million, $300,000 of actual net cap space. So essentially, I'm not going to say he's free, but he's pretty darn close to it with the way that it works. And so it's hard to see somebody being paid essentially vet minimum, being in line to be a starter. I think they just see him as really good depth. And if things don't work out with Ezra Cleveland, who might be the plan A, if they don't happen to bring in another tackle either through the draft or a trade or maybe even free agency, we'll see. I'm not sure they're done there. I think those are all options. I don't see Rashod Hill being retained for $1 million of cap space as anything more than a depth move, really. So I don't see that as their plan going forward, but I do think they're happy to keep him, and they know that he's got some versatility to play either left side or right side. So if anything ever happens, he can step right in, as he's done in the past and has done a pretty good job at it. So I think they're happy to keep him.
And to your point, at one point, Rashod Hill was plan A. They let him start at right tackle. They had obviously drafted Brian O'Neill. Rashod Hill got hurt, and then, it was kind of end song there for Hill. But I agree with you, Nick. I think him being a really good, I think Rashod Hill's one of the better swing tackles in the NFL. And for the Vikings to be able to get him at that veteran minimum, that's type of deal, he gets more money, but the cap hits lower. And we're seeing guys like Kendall Lamb and no offense to those guys, but like Kendall Lamb and Cam Irving getting like twice or even 3 times as much as Rashod Hill is crazy to me. And for the Vikings to be able to continue to get Rashod Hill back at that cheap of a deal for a guy that, if you need him to be your day one starter for whatever reason, like, it wouldn't be a catastrophe.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be great either, but
no,
catastrophe.
I didn't say that. I didn't say it'd be great.
All right, Nick, talk to me about the other signing, because you in the group chat today, you were going pretty hard in the paint for Dalvin, the other Dalvin, defensive Dalvin.
The other Dalvin. Talk
to me about why we should be so excited about this signing.
Yeah, I understand the concerns. Like, what's the point of having 2 nose guards in a passing league? It kind of doesn't make sense. I will say there's a fine line between the different flavors of defensive tackle. We kind of draw this very hard distinction, and it does make sense between the guy who's getting a double team and the guy who's getting a one-on-one against the guard as a 3-shade defensive tackle. But I would never say Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson play the same position. Michael Pierce is nearly 350 pounds. Dalvin Tomlinson is like 315, which is about average for a 3-technique defensive tackle. I think the reason people look at Dalvin Tomlinson and think nose guard is because that's what he was at Alabama, and that's kind of what he's been. I mean, it's been a bit of a mix in New York, but it's kind of what he's been in New York, I think. And also, he's a better run stuffer than he is pass rusher. However, I think if they wanted to let him loose, he does have a pass rush move arsenal. He doesn't come off the field necessarily on third downs. Michael Pierce, you're not keeping a 350-pound dude in the NFL, one of the biggest guys in the entire NFL. You're not keeping him in there on third and long. You could do that with Dalvin Tomlinson, though, if you want. He's strong. He can push the pocket. He can bull rush. If you leave him one-on-one, he will walk guys straight back into the pocket. But he's also got some quickness. He's got some jab step moves. He's got a swipe rip move. He's got a lot of different things that he can do to win one-on-one and pass rush situations. So I think if they want to let him loose a little bit, you could see a little bit of maybe a Kenny Clark situation where he's kind of like a half nose tackle, half 3-technique defensive tackle, but he's a decent pass rusher. I don't think Tomlinson is the same caliber of pass rusher as Kenny Clark, but you can see him getting that similar usage. However, I really think the Vikings see this as like a souped up Shamar Stephen, like like somebody who schematically they don't want a penetrating under tackle like Geno Atkins. Zimmer wants a guy to control the line of scrimmage, control the run game, take up a gap and a half in the run game, and allow him to play more guys in the back end in coverage. And that's kind of the value I think Zimmer is seeing here, is he's wants to dedicate more resources to coverage, and to do that, to be able to like handle having a lighter box to run cover 4, cover 2, where the safeties aren't in the fits the way Zimmer likes to. You need to be able to like have really good defensive tackles up front, and you need to have really good linebackers who can fit different gaps depending on how the read is going. And that's what the Vikings have right now with Michael Pierce, with Dalvin Tomlinson. So I think if you just look at how bad our run defense last year was, and just looking at Alvin Kamara's 6 touchdown game on Christmas, ruined a lot of Christmases for us. This is a big step up there too. I think they can keep him on the field in pass rush situations, or if they want to let him loose, let him, when he can pin his ears back. He's not a great pass rusher, but I think he's a pretty solid one. And I really think the value he brings in the run game allows them to put more resources into coverage, which I think will ultimately make them better, not just in the run game, but also in the passing game. So I like the fit. It also keeps them from having to force drafting a defensive tackle. Shamar Stephen was probably the worst projected starter at 3 technique in the league. So this is a major upgrade. I mean, Dalvin Tomlinson, unless you consider Leonard Williams a defensive interior player, some people consider him an edge rusher. This guy was the best guy in the market. So huge upgrade from Shamar Stephen, similar type of player, but a huge upgrade at the position, big position of weakness. I'm not saying there aren't question marks left on the roster, but I think when you look at the defensive line today, it looks significantly better than it did when it was Pierce, it was Hunter, and then it was a couple of the worst starters in the NFL. Now you just have one of the worst projected starters in the NFL. So more work to do, but I do like the signing. I think cap space wise, it fits. They got him for kind of cheaper than he was projected to go. So I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. Still have to feel out how the fit works necessarily come week 1.
So Eric's not here, but first I'll say shout out to Eric for his wonderful piece on Pro Football Focus about the importance of having stout defensive tackles, defensive line who can help you stop the run, and how that affects the entire defense. Like Nick said, allowing you to throw more people in coverage. So, that's a check for Eric, even though he's not here. But then, the other side of that goes, like Flip said earlier, and Nick also reiterated again just now, RIP to all the Christian Barmore, to the Vikings at pick 14, and all those other things that we were seeing in Eric's Pro Football Focus analytics mock. So no more of that. No defensive tackles in the first round. Get that out of here. So sorry, Eric. You win some, you lose some. Flip, what are your thoughts on Dalvin? Because you were mentioning, you were kind of seeing him as a player that, like, yeah, this is almost an every down player for us, the way that you were maybe envisioning how the team was going to use him.
Yeah, I think Nick put a great summary together. I think the only thing I'd add in thoughts on Tomlinson is it really is about fit and the rotation they try to establish. So anyone who's just trying to view this as Michael Pierce doing, playing 1,000 snaps at nose and Tomlinson playing 1,000 snaps at 3 technique, that's just not how it works. We have to consider, we definitely have 2 stout guys, 4 rushing downs and 4 rushing situations. You can plug Pierce and Tomlinson out there and expect to get much better results than I think it was 32nd or 30th ranked rushing defense in the NFL last year. So that's an immediate fix. But on passing downs, it really also is about being able to move Tomlinson to nose and asking ourselves, who is that pass rushing specialist 3 technique that comes in? Is he already on the roster as a Hercules Mataafa or an Amon Watts or a James Lynch? Or are they going to go back into the mid rounds of the draft and add some pass rush power there? But again, not just looking at the whole composition of fit, it really would be cool to see Tomlinson next to a younger pass rusher along the interior.
Well, so
all right.
One thing that go ahead, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, Myles, I was actually just going to throw it to you. I was going to ask you if you were hearing anything else, any rumors, anything that we should get out there. And I also wanted us to get back to Vikings. Jerome asked us a question a little bit earlier about Oli Udoh stepping in on the offensive line. So I wanted you to, holler at Vikings.
We got
Jerome,
questions coming in on the comments.
And then also just, is there anything else you're hearing? Anything that we should be, and anyone else we should get our hopes up about to only be made sad about it later on?
Well, I'll start with the pass rush situation on the interior. I know, I think it was Rick Spielman talked about it with PA the other day with Stephen Weatherly, that they view him as a guy that can rush the passer from the middle on third down situations and those things, and passing down situations. So that's something that we've seen the Vikings do before. So maybe that's a situation where you put Dalvin Tomlinson and then you slide him over to nose, where Weatherly comes in at 3 tech, and you have a DJ Wanham, or if maybe they're going to bring in another edge rusher, a vet edge rusher. Who knows what their plan will be here? But I would expect probably. I mean, they like to have at least 4 guys. So whether it's the draft or whether it's in free agency, I'd expect the Vikings to add another edge rusher. But I haven't heard anything else as of late in terms of who they're interested in. It sounds like Keanu Neal, Mackenzie Alexander. Let's see, what was the other names? Will Parks is a name that's been out there for a while. Those are the top, I think, 3 names at like defensive back that seem to be in the market. The Vikings are in the market for to fill safety, cornerback, and depending on the price, maybe they could fill both, which is a big need for this team to kind of like fill out the rest of the defense heading into the draft. Would be adding a corner and a safety.
Yeah, and so I guess of those names, who do you like the most? And like with them maybe approaching the wait and see, looking for some value, how are you feeling about the way they're approaching the offseason thus far?
Yeah, I should start. Anthony Harris is also in that mix too, it sounds like. I'd say Anthony Harris is obviously the most expensive one. So that's the hard part is, do you fill one guy or do you fill multiple? And I'm very much thinking they're at a point where they should probably fill multiple holes rather than just continue to go with the big fish. Anthony Harris, love him. I think if they can get him back at a reasonable deal, that'd be great. But overall, like if they could get a Keanu Neal or Will Parks at a cheaper rate and go out and get another starting corner, I think that'd be a more impactful way to help your defense than to just add Anthony Harris. But if they found a way to do Harris and a cheaper corner, sure.
We got to stop letting Myles say so many names, though, because every time Myles says a name, they end up
they're gone. We don't get them.
You're right. I'm out.
Myles, you get one more name.
I'm not saying another name. Well, those are the names that have been out there. So like, just re-reporting the names you've heard from guys like Darren Doogie Wilson. Who else? Ben Gessling, I think, has said it. A few other people. I'm sorry for misquoting anybody, but what do I call reasonable for Harris? That's the tough part. Is the safety market's in such a weird spot. So you got a guy like John Johnson who, in a normal year, probably would have got more than 11.5 a year. So he was probably the best safety on the market. Harris is probably right below that. We also saw Rashod Jenkins for the Jaguars. He was former Charger. Jaguars signed him. I think it was like 3 years or 4 years, $36 million. So he got like 9.5. So like that's for where the Vikings are currently at. That's probably a little too rich for what they should be doing. So they probably couldn't get Harris. I wouldn't want Harris back at those type of deals, in my opinion.
And Flip,
yeah.
What Vikings Jerome said we need to be putting Anthony Barr at 3 tech. Comments?
No, Jerome.
He's a little skinny for that. Put on 50 pounds.
My view on Harris is it's really, again, it's term. It's like if we could lock in Anthony Harris for 3 years, find a way to get that done, that'd be an amazing buy low on a guy who we know is more capable than what he put on film in 2021. So that's kind of like the bargain, the value kind of search that I'm trying to look at. I know we got some other comments here. Viking Jerome also talking about Oli Udo starting on the offensive line, and Richard Sickles talking about, if we keep Danielle Hunter, who is that fourth? Who do you want that fourth edge rusher to be? Are we trying to build a monster all-star defensive line, or are we okay with just a role player across from Danielle Hunter?
I mean, we're broke, so we're probably taking a role player across from Danielle Hunter. I mean, we have no money.
They kind of have them. I mean, it's all about what they think of DJ Wanham, and it's all about, obviously they feel comfortable enough with Stephen Weatherly for him to be in as part of the rotation. I understand Nick very much was upset that they didn't tender Afadio Denebo. I'm not saying I disagree with that. I always just knew I at least expected when they gave Weatherly the deal they did that might have meant Odenebo was gone. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have changed those priorities, but it is always kind of leading that way.
Yeah.
I thought they should have brought both back. I mean, both guys help you, but it seems they didn't want to do that. Or maybe it also sounds real quick, Flip. It also sounds like Odenebo was also open to a change of scenery. So maybe Odenebo was like, please don't tender me too. Like there could have been some of those conversations as well. We don't know that.
Yeah, to me, Wanham and Weatherly is enough. And by themselves, no, they don't say anything special, but it just goes back to the question. Are we trying to build a top 5 defense here, or are we trying to build a top 15 defense? I think I know what Mike Zimmer would say, but if we're trying to build a top 15 defense, then you've got Michael Pierce coming back. You've got Dalvin Tomlinson now. You have Daniil Hunter coming back. You have Eric Kendricks coming back. You have Anthony Barr playing a full season. And then you have your young secondary taking another step. Hopefully you add a depth safety to all of those guys coming back, and you can get a top 15 defense. So I'm not trying to build an all-star team in the NFC North. I'm just trying to get a functional defense that can prevent teams from scoring 25, 30 points a game on us, and then go look back at the offense, figure out what Oli Udoh is going to do for us.
So, Nick, I need you to talk to me now about the player on offense that seems to bring down the most anger from Vikings fans. And I'm not talking about Kirk Cousins this time, so don't worry. I'm not going to make you defend Kirk yet again. I'd like you to talk to me about Sean Mannion, because he really seems to make Vikings fans very upset. The word is, we're maybe a competition. Maybe Mannion just holds it down all on his own this offseason. Why do we keep re-signing Sean Mannion? And as our man, the unit, said, are we going to get a real backup quarterback, or is it Sean Mannion forever?
Yeah, it's interesting. Backup quarterback, I feel like you either have to be really good at it or you have to really suck at it. Because you don't want to be have a mediocre backup, because that just, if your starting QB goes down, that just locks you into 8-8. And you don't want, if your starting QB goes down, I'm sorry, but it's either a wasted season or you're going to try and Case Keenum 2017 it and spark some magic. So I feel like it's either a position you want to have somebody who you feel like a Nick Foles type. You could go on, if your starting QB goes down and you're in the playoffs, you're not screwed. Or it's a situation where if your starting QBs go down, well, then it's a lost season. But hey, at least you'll get a top 5 pick coming out of it, and maybe find a new franchise quarterback out of it. I don't feel like it's like the old quote where Gruden asked Tom Moore, if Peyton Manning went down, why don't we give the backups more reps? And the quote is, I'll make it PG for the audience, but it's if Peyton goes down, we're effed, and we don't practice effed. So I don't know. Sean Mannion is people see him. He's been pretty mediocre in the preseason, but it's we're talking about 50 snaps here, and they're judging his performance and, everybody else, all the other backup QBs on 2,000 snaps in preseason. So I feel like people can get latched on to oh man, he was not very good in week 2 of the 2019 preseason, but it's that's such a small sample size to base strong feelings about. So, and I know they rave about Sean Mannion's ability on the whiteboard, and dude, it's a vet minimum contract. So it's not it's not really costing us any money. It's just the matter of are we squeezing out opportunities for the young guys? And I don't know. I'm fine with. I'm not going to get mad about it. I guess if Kirk Cousins goes down, I would like us to have a top 5 pick and draft a new quarterback. So luckily, Kirk Cousins, knock on wood, has been ridiculously injury prone his entire career. So maybe that's another reason to not invest too much. But for a team who would like to maybe upgrade a quarterback in the long term, would like to find a new one, who doesn't have the cap space to have a premium backup quarterback, I think it makes sense to just keep the familiar guy who's almost kind of like a substitute QB coach, the way they talk about him on the whiteboard. So I'm fine with it.
Well, Teddy's a familiar. I mean, the comments are saying Teddy's going to be cheap.
Play the greatest hits.
I love Teddy, but he deserves more than vet minimum.
Yes.
Give Teddy some credit.
Thomas, we've seen Case Keenum. We've seen Teddy.
Right.
Who else is in there?
That's the thing, though, is the Vikings don't have the cap space to go out and sign and put resources into the backup quarterback position in free agency. Now, I've always been a proponent of going out and drafting somebody in the mid to late rounds, at least every other year, if not every year. The Vikings don't do that. So if they're not going to do it and they're not going to put resources into the backup, Sean Mannion's fine. Like, what do we care who the backup is then? Like, to everybody else's point, if your starter goes down, you're screwed anyways. So changing that to instead of it being Sean Mannion and you go get, you name a backup quarterback. I don't know, Christian Ponder. There we go.
There we go. Bring back Ponder. Yeah. How do you think Kirk would handle Teddy as his backup quarterback? How do you think that would go? Would we have a repeat of Wentz and a Wentz situation?
Kirk would handle it just like Aaron Rodgers, man. Set the league on fire, right?
The cane would be so short for Zimmer if Teddy were his backup. Zim would find any excuse.
Kirk would never make it past that week 2 interception frenzy he always goes on, man.
Teddy's his boy. Always will be. Sorry.
All right. So Flip, I know you don't have players that you fall in love with, but I want you to tell me based on what you've seen thus far. I know beforehand you were saying, find me maybe a cheap guard or a cheap corner or something else. They've made some moves. Those have not been the moves we've seen thus far. Is that still what you're hoping for? Do you think the Vikings maybe actually have a plan and are going about things differently? Because you've also looked at things in the past and said, it kind of feels like they're just making it up as they go. Based on what you've seen so far this offseason, does it feel like there's a cohesive plan at play with the Vikings, or does it still feel like scattershot panic moves that you're seeing from the team thus far?
I mean, I see a cohesive plan. It's typical Mike Zimmer. I need to fix my defense. I'm going to fix my defense first. I don't care about the offense. I mean, the comments are nailing it on the head. People are asking about Oli Udoh and if he can start, okay? The offense looks like trash right now, especially compared to 2020. It looks like crap. There's no Riley Reif. There's no Kyle Rudolph. We haven't done anything to make our receiving core better. We don't know who's going to play guard. We don't know what position Ezra Cleveland's going to play. We don't know how much we should pay Brian O'Neill or where he should play. So we don't even know some key things about the best players on the offense, more or less how to supplement them and bring in talent around them. It's just entirely defensive focused right now. Look, I love the Rashod Hill signing, but we clearly need more. And outside of just Joe Thuney pipe dream that wasn't going to happen, there is the clear plan is that the offense has taken a backseat in an offense-driven league. So great job for developing a bad but cohesive plan, Mike Zimmer.
Two points I want to make, Flip. We might not know where Ezra Cleveland and Brian O'Neill are playing, but they do. Or at least
they
have
don't
an
know.
assumption where
They don't know. They say they're saying they're going to kick the tires.
Well,
they don't know.
I mean, Flip, we're not in the meeting rooms. I mean, so all I'm saying is they at least have contingency plans. They have ideas of what they're going to do. It's not like they're just having a blank canvas and saying, "We'll figure it out." Like, yes, it's a fluid situation. That's for sure. I agree with that part. I think it is fluid in that if they if they find an upgrade at left tackle, Ezra will stay at guard. I think that's true. I think whether it's in the draft, trade, what have you, I think that's going to happen. If they don't, then I think maybe we'll still see an opportunity for Ezra Cleveland to be the left tackle. We don't know that, but I think them keeping it fluid doesn't mean they don't know. I think they're just trying to keep their options as open as possible because there are a lot of scenarios that could happen.
So
but at the same time,
they are talking to guards. They aren't ignoring the position, and they do.
Right.
There are still a couple of not Pro Bowl caliber, but very solid starting guards who would be massive upgrades over Drew Samia or Dakota Dozier last year. So it's still. I think this was always the plan all along on the guard situation. This has never been a position where Spielman likes to invest a lot of money or draft capital into, and I think he's right to do that. I think you want to invest in the tackles and at least in a wide zone scheme, have a center who can make the really tough run blocks, but you don't want to invest massively at the guard position. And they're waiting you're never going to get good value on the first or second day of free agency. They're waiting for guys to be like, okay, I guess this is the best offer I'm getting. I'll go to Minnesota, where at least they'll love me because of who I have to replace. So I think Doogie's thrown out Trey Turner. I think he's thrown out Gabe Jackson. Both of those guys would be pretty huge upgrades. Trey Turner has a little bit more injury question marks, but when healthy is like a massive upgrade. So
Vikings Jerome is on fire today.
Well,
I do think they're not done yet on the guards.
I agree.
No, I don't think they're done. And maybe they don't know is too strong of an opinion, but look, it is clearly taking a backseat to the defense. And on both sides of the ball, we have to remember that the issue with the 2020 Vikings wasn't just about key starters and key positions. There was also a huge issue with depth. So when you talk about, letting a Fady walk, not resigning Brett Jones.
Shut up, Ryan.
Ryan.
Not even in jest.
Not now, Ryan.
I promise you they're kicking the tires on somebody
off. Can we kick Ryan off?
David, get him out of the chat.
I think I was looking at, not to cut you off, Flip. I was looking at like the PFF pass blocking grades, and if you limit it to like the 50% pass qualifier, 50% snaps qualifier, Dozier was the worst pass blocking guard in the NFL. And if you go to like the 20% snap qualifier, Samia was the worst pass blocking guard in the NFL. So it's really bad.
The deeper the pool, the worse it gets. But like my point is, like, look on the defensive side of the ball. In the middle of all this free agent frenzy, the Vikings are like, you know what we need? We need a third linebacker. And they rush out and they get depth because they know they need it on defense. But on the offensive side of the ball, there's just no attention to those depth signings, or just there's not the same amount of urgency. So that's all I'm saying. I know the
depth signing on offense, Myles.
Interesting. He been killing me for saying that.
Interesting.
For guard,
depth at wide receiver, would that be okay, Flip?
No, because apparently wide receivers not important enough
in the best wide receiver draft of the last 5 years, that's where you get your wide receiver depth. And I also think that's where you address offensive tackle, because the draft class is strong in those areas. But what the Vikings have done is they looked at linebackers and they said, you know what? We don't see good depth at linebacker amongst these rookies. Let's just sign a cheap one. And they're doing the same thing.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Okay. So here's the thing.
Okay, fine. Don't agree.
The reason I say that is because the Vikings have always invested in their linebacker depth. Always. Like, it's always something they do. They do it with running back. Running back and linebacker, the two positions they're consistently putting resources into. Whether I'm not saying it's always like significant resources, but they're always putting resources to those positions. So they're always adding to those rooms. So no, it's not. I don't think they signed Nick Vigil to $1 million deal because they think he's better than any rookie they could get in the third round. I think they brought Nick Vigil in because he's cheap and he knows the system.
Okay.
What do you guys think they do at speaking of depth positions, what do you guys think they do at wide receiver? And would you prefer? It's really interesting seeing the wide receiver market shake out. It seems like everybody knows this draft class.
Let's go.
Seems like everybody knows this draft class is going to be really good, so they're like hesitant to hand out contracts. But at the same time, I feel like you could get some pretty nice bargains in free agency if you waited out a little bit. So you guys think they should go out and spend on a wide receiver 3, or think they should address it in the draft?
Oh, Flip.
Go ahead, Myles. Go ahead.
I've literally said this. I think they should do both. There's no reason that they like. If they can get a guy that's a quality depth player at wide receiver for cheap, there's no reason they shouldn't do it. Like,
here's the reason they should not do it.
So real quick, Flip. Like, real quick. So bring Chad Beebe back at a veteran minimum, or go get a guy that's better than Chad Beebe at a little bit more than the veteran minimum. I'd rather go get the slightly better than Chad Beebe player, like at a slightly higher rate. Like, that's fine. Like, if Keelan Cole comes up, I said I think $3 million was like my cap. Like, with the way the wide receiver market is right now, Keelan Cole is better than Chad Beebe, but he's also your primary returner. And that's a position that's been a big issue for this team for a long time. So I think if you can kill two birds with one stone with a guy like Keelan Cole who can help you in multiple ways for a cheap rate, I don't see the problem with that.
Okay.
Flip?
Yeah, the problem with it is that even if you get a free agent wide receiver at $3 million, that's 3 times more expensive than rookie receivers are going for right now. And those rookie receivers are outproducing the current like what veteran receivers have done over the last 3 years. And we're heading into the best rookie wide receiver draft class yet. So why would you spend an extra $2 million when you don't need to? Of course, you can find returners in the draft as well. So from a risk standpoint, you're paying 3 times more for the same amount of risk. And if your answer is to do both, then I would tell you to just get 2 rookie wide receivers. Because again, the risk is less there. You control them for 4 years instead of 1 or 2 years, and you're paying less money.
Oh, Stephen B disagrees with you, Flip. Sorry.
Stephen B always disagrees with me. I love it. I love it.
I'm okay paying out a little bit in free agency for wide receiver 3 because, you know, the old adage, you know, you draft for need or you draft for upside and you sign free agents for need. I feel like wide receiver 3 right now is a big need and punt returner right now is a big need. And if you can get a bargain contract and go from below replacement level to a little bit above replacement level, that's probably worth it. And still go ahead and draft receivers who you hope will be better than like a cheap wide receiver 3 down the road. But you also don't have to rely on them like KJ Osborne. Like you have to fill that no matter what. We're gonna try it even if they're muffing punts. Like you don't want to be in that situation either. So I feel like it's worth trying to plug that hole.
What I'm saying is the rookie wide receiver can plug that hole just as well. That's how good rookie wide receivers have been. They've averaged
KJ Osborne a rookie when we tried to. Don't you get a veteran that you've evaluated against NFL players and seen what they can do? Isn't like certainty a bit of what you're paying for there?
Because
I'm asking, like honestly, like because the draft is a crapshoot.
Most rookies suck.
If you could assume that veteran wide receivers have been producing better, but in this case, veteran wide receivers have not been producing better. So here's my analogy. Let's say that your wife sends you to the store to get a bag of fruit, and I'm you all better take notes on this analogy because there's going to be questions afterwards. Your wife has sent you to the store to get a bag of fruit, and you get to the store and you're like, crap, I forgot which bag of fruit my wife wanted me to get. Okay. I hope you're all following. So let's say to solve that problem, you're going to get 2 bags of fruit. No, you don't have a phone, Miles. Stick with the analogy. Let's say you're going to get 2 bags of fruit. Let's say you're going to buy a bag of apples and a bag of oranges to make sure that, you know, hopefully one of those fills the need that you have, the bag of fruit for. So what you do is you buy a $10 bag of apples. We're going to Whole Foods, $30 bag of oranges.
California
Go home. Your wife says, thank you.
Fruit, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for getting me this bag of apples. So the $30 bag of oranges was just insurance, right? Because the $10 bag of apples, which is the drafted wide receiver in this scenario, was all you really needed to get. And that's what you're trying to do with these free agent wide receivers. You're paying for an expensive bag of oranges when you could have just bought 2 bags of apples.
Ryan, you just figuring out that Flip is a baller?
Oranges.
Yeah.
Let them see the background. Ryan Ryan, you just now figuring out. Look at this. Flip is in his library right now as we record this episode. Of course, Flip is a baller. Get it right, man. Y'all. Get it right.
Stop paying for these things that you don't need.
I think the point was we need to stop paying for things we don't need, especially when we can get them for cheaper and maybe get more from them out of the draft. But there's a lot of maybes in that sentence as we're saying it.
No, there's no maybes. That's what I'm trying to say. There's tons of evidence.
You're telling me there's a guarantee a 3rd or 4th round pick is going to outproduce a guy like a Keelan Cole. You're telling me that
I'm saying that if you don't think a third-round pick is going to outproduce a Keelan Cole, your insurance for that third-round pick should be another third-round pick, because there's guys like Terry McLaurin out there who are doing work, came in the third round. There's guys like Michael Pittman Jr. There's guys like DJ Chark. They're bursting out of the seams in the draft right now. And I know you got rookie wide receivers that you like. So I'm trying to say, take 2 of them. That's all I'm saying.
Flip. We've talked. So this is where our disconnect is.
Spend 2 of our 0 second-round picks.
Right. We don't have any second-round
picks.
Terry
McLaurin was a third-round pick.
Sure, I'm not saying that they shouldn't spend a day 2 pick on a wide receiver. I'm telling you, they're not going to spend 2 at wide recreceiver.
Well, I'm telling you they should.
But they're not going to do it. So
they're not going to sign a free agent wide receiver either. So what's the point of even talking about this? What's the last free agent wide receiver they've signed? Tajay Sharp, that minimum.
They've done it every year.
Vet minimum.
Last 3 or 4 years. That's still signing. If they could get Keelan Cole for the vet minimum, why wouldn't you do it?
It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money because all of these vet minimum wide receivers have been blowing the crap. And so why not get a rookie wide receiver in a strong rookie wide receiver draft class and control those rookies for 4 years instead of 1 year?
You're telling me that they're – so there's a difference between telling me what they should do and what they're actually going to do. And that's where our disconnect is, because I like to at least start looking at things of like what I expect them to do. And do I expect them to draft 2 wide receivers on day 2 or like a 3rd and a 4th round pick? Not in a million fucking years, because they don't do it. They haven't.
Why do you expect them to sign a vet wide receiver? If it's about expectations, then we both expect them to do the worst option possible. We expect them to do the worst option possible at wide receiver. So we agree on that, Myles. We don't disagree on what we expect them to do. We disagree on what they should do.
No, I didn't say they shouldn't do it. I said that I don't expect them to do it. I don't see them doing it.
Hold on, put it back up there, David. I'm trying to read.
Andrew knows. Everybody gets the analogy about the 2 people I'm talking to. Why do you want to be spending on this fucking kiwi, Myles?
Kiwis are
language,
delicious.
Myles. Language, Myles. All right, so we've made it through the signings. We've gone through story time with Flip. Was there anything else we wanted to cover before we get out of here? We're almost at the top of the hour. Have we made it? Is there anything else? Who's the next player? Actually, no. Myles, what's the next position you expect the Vikings to sign?
DB. Safety or corner. I don't know which one, but I think it'll be one of those 2 positions.
Flip?
Expect?
Yeah, expect.
DB, because Mike Zimmer gets what he wants.
Zim told it. So this is why I'm not surprised by the Vikings approach, because Zimmer literally came out and said, I was very satisfied with the offense did in 2020. That told me everything I need to know. It said I'm good with rolling it back with everything we had and not changing the damn thing.
Good. Isn't he right?
Do you think the offense is going to be just as good next year?
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's literally what I'm trying to say is his idea that they'll just roll it back and do the same exact thing and nothing needs to change and it doesn't need to improve. That's the issue. I'm saying when he said that, it just meant that they were going to focus on defense, and I was like, oh, I'm not surprised. Zimmer was embarrassed last year.
Yeah, I think wide receiver and some of the other markets are taking their time, and I feel like we're starting to see the cornerback market shape up. So I could definitely see. I guess I would see one of the cheaper cornerbacks coming in soon. I'm not sure about safety necessarily because it feels like that's kind of weird right now, and we've seen a couple guys get signed, but there's still a lot of good safeties left. I imagine they'll probably hit a go or no go point soon with Ant Harris, but I don't know if they're going to have the money to bring him back. So if they eventually sign Will Parks, I'm not expecting that soon. But if they sign like Mac Alexander, I could see that tonight or tomorrow or something. So yeah, I'm going to go corner.
All right. We finally have something that everyone agrees on. Before we get y'all out of here, head on over to the Climbing the Pocket Twitter page. We got a new contest going on. March Madness is around the corner. Sign up for a chance to win some monies. $100 to first place, $250 to first place if the YouTube channel gets to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the tournament. Tell your friends, get them signed up, make some picks. win some money, fun for the whole family. Gentlemen, thanks for coming through. Viewers, thanks for all of the awesome comments. Makes this
Love
fun
y'all in
every
the comments.
week. Andrew, thanks for joining in on Story Time with Flip. It was good times, fun for the whole family. And listeners, if you're listening to this at a later point in time, you should be a viewer next time. Come, join us. It's good times. It's fun.
Yell at us.
Subscribe, ring the bell, yell at us, do all those things. It's a good time. And that's it. That's all. David, Ezra is probably not going to play left tackle. Also, play the music.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Roll, everybody.